For this video, we're going to take a look at 3 examples of video game music. We're working in Ableton Live. You could do this in any DAW, but I'm going to show you in Ableton Live why I like to use this to demonstrate video game cues. It'll make the looping very easy. We can skip between the cues. These cues, there's 3 different ones here. The first one is a bed, which we could think of as ambient music, or this would be some of the gameplay music. We have a bonus game entry, which is a short type of stinger, or maybe a finale cue. And then we have Anticipation 2, which is another short stinger, a little bit of a transition piece to change the mood in the game. All of these were composed according to spec. There was a request for some percussion and strings, so that was the basic idea of this, and then a particular mood of relaxation, gaming, a little bit of an Asian feel, and there was a specific request for marimba or percussion in here. So all those things were dictated by the spec of the particular loops that were asked for. And this first one, let's go ahead and take a look at the bed just so you can see how this was composed. Very simple, a string part on top, marimba part on the bottom, and in the middle is a part for double bass. The string and marimba parts are basically an 8-measure loop that is repeated 5 times. This is set up here so that we can get an exactly 1-minute loop out of these, but it would be quite easy to cut these into 8 or even maybe 4 measure sections if we needed to generate some shorter materials as well. To make this loop a little bit more interesting, the bass part, each 8 measures, you can see that the bass part changes, and there's 3 variations. So you hear variation 1, then variation 2, and then those repeat. And then the 5th time you get a variation number 3. So if you listen to this over the full minute, it's not looping exactly the same thing. So it does give a little bit of variation, which is one of the things you want to try and do when you are looping. Let's go ahead and take a look. Listen. I'm just going to solo the string part in this so you can hear the string part of bed 1. And again, what I like about Ableton Live, if you're familiar with how this works, we can click on the little marker up here at top, and that's going to cue me up to play this one. And when I hit play, it'll always start right there. And that's enough to get a sense of the loop that's happening there. Likewise, let me just go back there again, and we'll solo up the marimba part so you can hear that that's just a little ostinato percussion pattern. And then that's going to repeat. Important to notice inside each of those parts that there is a little bit of variation. The marimba part has some changes in dynamics that was played in. I think it later quantized, but it was actually played in for dynamics. The string part also has some things happening because of the patch that was chosen. There's a little bit of motion in the sound. So it's not just static, there is some nice variation happening. Then the bass part, let's cue that up or solo it. And just listen to a little bit of that by itself. You'll hear it's very simple, just some low notes. And we'll have a chance to hear the entire thing in a moment, but you can already hear a little bit of the variation in the second note of the double bass part, when that second loop comes around. When you put all of those together, let's go ahead and take a listen. We'll turn off the solos. And here's a full minute of that loop. And when it gets to the end of it, what I'm going to do is sort of manually make it repeat back to the beginning. I'm going to click on the little triangle up in the marker. What's great about Ableton Live is the playback will keep happening and it's going to just jump to that particular location. So this would be very much, we can simulate a little bit of what's going to happen when this gets integrated into a game where it will actually be programmed to maybe repeat this 1 minute loop so we can get a sense for how that works. And here we go. It's going to be a full minute, a little over of listening. Okay, so it started that loop back over again. The idea is if you were playing the game, that would be going on in the background. Who knows how long that'll go for? It'll just be able to keep repeating. Again, kind of an ambient bed underneath. Hopefully enough variation to not get too old, but a little bit, will stay out of the way a little bit as well. All right, let's take a listen to the bonus game entry. I should mention here at this particular point, take a look at the tempo. The entire first bed was running at 160. When we get to the bonus game entry, it's supposed to build excitement a little bit. So this particular one, in addition to the ascending notes that you're going to hear, you will hear, or you will see that the tempo actually speeds up. There's not really drums that are going on, so we don't get that sense of actually feeling every quarter necessarily, but it helps build the anticipation. So here we go. I'm going to just play the entire bonus game entry, and then we'll break it down a little bit. Okay, so it's a short little musical phrase, a stinger we get there for a little bit. It could be used for transition, or it even works as an ending. If that's where we need a little bit of silence afterwards or something, could work as an end cue as well. And I'll just quickly play the individual parts. Here's the string part. So not only is it building on all these parts, building in intensity by going up in pitch, it's also building in rhythmic density as the tempo speeds up. So that helps compositionally here. And it just sort of has the illusion a little bit of running out of notes at the end. And I believe this last one just has a little gong inside of it. There you go. And that gong was carefully placed in a spot that made rhythmic sense, but that wouldn't hold over the end of that too long. We want to make sure we're not going to have anything trailing out too long. But sometimes some music trailing out, some sound trailing out over the end can actually help with whatever's coming up next. That's where we look at sort of hiding the seams of the transition. So this could be played around with a little bit as far as where it's placed and for how long that gong will ring out. And again, here they are all together one more time. And you almost don't hear the attack of the gong in there unless you're really listening for it. You hear more of the trailing effect of it afterwards. So that's all based on how we determine how we mix it. Let me quickly play you the anticipation part. So this one is supposed to set up, again, a little bit of a feeling of anticipation. It's supposed to slow the pace of gameplay down a little bit was the request for this one. So hopefully that's what you hear when I do this one. So it's just sort of static. It doesn't have all the melodic motion of the last one. It just sort of sits there. And if you listen to the individual parts, here's the marimba part. It's very simple. All the motion we heard in the bed just sort of comes to a standstill. The world drums and percussion, track number 4 here, does a little bit of a heartbeat. Okay, so the attempt there was to kind of get the heart racing a little bit or make you feel that. And then the bass is just sitting there, and same with the strings, they're just sitting on a chord. So all those parts together again. Okay. And hopefully you can see that from cue to cue, and you can hear it as well, there's a cohesiveness in terms of the overall feel and a cohesiveness with the instrumentation. So we're trying to make create a feel with each one, but keep them in the same family, make it feel like it's part of the same compositional style as we go. And lastly here, I'll show you what's so neat about working with Ableton Live. I can just I'll start the engine running here, maybe start on the bed, and then I can interrupt the bed with like the bonus game entry, go back to the bed, go to the anticipation. So I can sort of test these. That's going to be one of the last steps you'll want to do in your pieces, is make sure that you have a way to arrange them in different orders. You want to test all the possible transitions that might be called upon by the game engine. So this is what's wonderful about working here in Ableton Live. So we'll start with the first one, and I'll just sort of jump around. We're going to go to the bonus game entry at the end of this. Then go right back to the bed. Suddenly anticipation. And that can even loop. Okay, so again, if you're not familiar with Ableton Live, it basically is waiting. We can set it to some different things, but this is a lot like your game engine settings. Right now it's waiting to the next bar once it receives essentially my trigger. When I'm clicking on a marker at the top, that's the trigger simulating the game action. And then at the next available location, it's jumping to that next sequence. So I can very quickly find out if things are working together. If anything sounds too awkward, I can recompose that a little bit to make it work a little more seamlessly. But this is a great way to test things. If you were in Pro Tools, you might just be manually dragging clips one after the other and trying in some different orders. Basically, every DAW will give you a way to do it, but Ableton Live, you can do it in a little bit of real time here. All right, hopefully that helps a little bit with some concepts of writing some game music.